Before I start this video, since YouTube heavily censors journalism, you might not see this on YouTube. If it is, then I am forced to self-censor footages and or details about the event. Enjoy!
Mabuhay ang ika-50 anibersaryo ng Partido Komunista ng Pilipinas!
Mabuhay!
Angon mga bihag ng butong.
Sabi, bala ba? Dili ay bala de. Na mabuto-buto na ini. Mabuto yaw na.
Ano ya? Papabuto kita eh! Ayaw pagpabutungan niya, boss! Ato akong trupa!
Ay pagpabuto na ka to, boss. Ayaw na.
This video will cover one social topic, the Communist Rebellion, which is still prevalent to this day even if I'm not in the Philippines.
But peace must be realized.
Ever since I grew up, I never realized how complex, even to the present, as of 2023, modern politics is in my home country.
We come to the point in our country's history when half a century's fight with insurgents is coming to an end.
Past is and was bloody, so how does it affect the nation today and how come it's still prevalent? Today I'm going to talk about a nation in Southeast Asia, not very known in the international stage, but its politics is just as tragic and complex as those overshadowed, such as China. At the end of World War II, during the liberation of Philippines by Filipino and American forces, the Japanese-sponsored puppet state under Jose P. Laurel and numerous political parties for collaboration were arrested and dissolved.
The United States of America and Great Britain have attacked from the air certain parts of the Philippines, thereby violating the territorial integrity of the Republic.
の資格を持って厳かに独立宣言文を朗読。我々は今314年にわたる欧米の支配。
Under the brutal regime, even with Laurel's effort to not send Filipinos to fight for the Japanese, Filipinos fought against Filipinos, Japanese against Filipinos, Japanese against Americans, and even Chinese against Japanese on Philippine soil. And it's with this mini civil war between the Hukbalahap against the Filipino-American collaborators started to rise. The Huk community was composed of farmers, eventually led by Casto Alejandrino, a peasant farmer, found from the Central Luzon, to fight against the invading Japanese. Huk community seems not to collaborate with other guerrilla fighters, seeing them as the reasons as they were not able to resist the Japanese, that they surrendered to the Americans and failed to fend off the American invasions, which is another story of itself. So by the end of the war, their size grew and eventually grew to about 10,000 strong and came under the leadership of Luis Taruk. As the liberated Philippines was forced to pass unequal treaties by the Americans, such as the Bell Trade Act, he sought to continue the conflict against the Americans and Filipinos.
Yeah, but at one point they joined, but Luis Taruk said, I'm more of a socialist. I don't want what they're doing, killing everybody.
Taruk did better than Ninoy and did better than Sison. Luis Taruk fought the Japanese in the Philippines during the war.
Numerous Huk veterans who fought against the Japanese were arrested by the USAFFE. Numerous maltreatment and imprisonment despite the concessions by Luis Taruk. The Huk resented the government even more. In 1949, under President Quirino, the Huk was condemned by the international community after an ambush on Aurora Quezon, the wife of Philippines' second president, Manuel L. Quezon. Taruk and his men immediately went back into hiding in Sierra Madre Mountains when negotiations fell apart on 14th of August 1948. The party and other affiliates have banned under Rojas and Quirino's administration, which led to the eventual trial of Luis Taruk. Eventually, Jose Sison formed the New People's Army by 1969. During this time, the CPP started to mobilize and recruit individuals from different sectors of society, including peasants, workers, and students, to join their cause and fight against what they saw as the oppressive government in rural and remote areas. Their operations include attacks on military installments, police and government personnel. They also targeted landlords, perceived enemies of the movement, and engaged in propaganda efforts to gain support from the local population. By this time, the government lacked a cohesive and well-defined strategy to counter the Communist Insurgency. Not only were Rojas, Carinos, and Magsaysay's administration were weak, but heavily influenced by the CIA, restrained by American exploitations financially and economically, allowing half-baked plans to offer action.
I shall use all the force at my command to the end that the sovereign authority of this government shall be respected and maintained. There can be no compromise with this loyalty.
The CIA knew about the rebellion and wanted to provide help to a degree, but American interests wanted the Philippines weak and unable to fight back so they can exploit the nation's resources throughout the Cold War. When the administrations did send soldiers, military actions were often reactionary and lacked a long-term plan, allowing rebels to regroup and continue their actions, which is what always tends to happen, especially in isolated urban areas or villages in the mountains. Corruption within the government and security forces were rampant, leading to leakage of sensitive information to the rebels, like ground commanders acting on their own volition or personal gain.
Ako, Ferdinand Marcos, ng Batag, Lalawigan ng Ilocos Norte, ay nihalal at itinanghal na Pangulo ng Pilipinas.
Ferdinand Marcos, the most controversial figure in all of modern Philippine history, made a decision that would decide his fate and the fate of the nation.
My countrymen, as of the 21st of this month, I signed Proclamation number 1081, placing the entire Philippines under martial law.
On the 23rd of September 1972, he declared martial law, that this is the only way to stop the communists from wreaking havoc on the countryside, urban, and terrorizing the isolated villages. Now, I can't put all the things he's done under this period because he alone deserves a video of his own. But here, we'll try to look at his administration from the CPP's perspective and those around him. The CPP has been very desperate, conducting terroristic tactics, burning villages, bombing telecommunication facilities, recruiting the young into their ranks, with their promises of a better and brighter Philippines. But by the time he became president in 1965, these people were already weak and somewhat dwindling. Marcos capitalized on the weakened state of the PKP and Hukbalhap, using their decline to highlight a communist threat and strengthen his position. By portraying communism as a threat and aligning with US interests in containing communism during the Vietnam War, Marcos garnered political support and bolstered his political power, emphasizing a communist threat to rally support. This time, we also see his administration using suppression tactics, such as the use of military and police forces to suppress perceived threats. This would include human rights abuses, including torture, extrajudicial killings, and forced disappearances, targeting political opposition, activists, and perceived sympathizers of the communist movement. Marcos's portrayal of the communist threat to justify authoritarian rule aligns with the United States' interest in containing communism during the Cold War. The martial law being passed was a success, granting the military significant powers to suppress perceived threats to the state, including the Communist Insurgency. This led to the arrest of key leaders and crackdowns on rebel groups. However, the insurgency continued to operate, adapting to the new political environment and employing guerrilla warfare tactics. And up to today, it is still debated if this reduced or increased sympathy for the insurgency due to future politicians altering the law numerous times and contradictory interpretation of our history. The communist insurgency in the Philippines greatly influenced land reforms. During the rebellion, the Hukbalhap advocated for land retribution, which influenced subsequent agrarian laws. Agrarian reform laws like the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program or CARP in 1988 were partially responses to the issues raised by the rebellion, aiming to address land ownership imbalances and improve the economic conditions for farmers. The presence of armed conflicts in rural areas disrupted the local economy, hindering agricultural production and business activities. Farmers often faced challenges due to insurgent activities and military operations, leading to a feedback loop, leading to economic instability and financial losses. The conflict created deep divides within society, leading to a polarized political landscape that continues to affect the country's governance and policy decisions.
They really say yes to good governance. Pero sa kasalukuyan ay hindi po ito ang tunay na naranasan ng mamamayan. Lamang lagana po ang kahirapan, kawalan ng trabaho, at ito sana ang dapat tugunan ng kasalukuyang regimen.
Senator Francis Escudero weighing in on the political drama at the lower house. He says House lawmakers have every right to defend the institution, regardless of who's attacking the chamber.
I doubt if the Senate will be more lenient to the administration than the House is.
Well, Philippine Senator Francis Escudero hits the transfer of funds from Land Bank and the Development Bank of the Philippines to the Maharlika Investment Fund. He says such a move was premature since the fund is not yet operational. The state lenders have sought regulatory relief from the Philippine Central Bank shortly after.
Satisfaction rate.
Nagkaroon na siya ng katahimikan gawa ng yung iba kasi mga nagda-drugs, wala na rin siya. Pero iilan na lang po, meron siguro.
Drugs, pills,
mga ganun po. Saka ano po, naging maayos din yung paligid. Nagkaroon na rin po ng disiplina yung ibang tao po.
To this day, the Philippines is split from the old and new generations. The older generation seemingly to side with the politics of the old, whilst the newer generation seem to support those opposing. It's a mess. But what we have to keep in mind is we need to foster accountability, transparency to obtain credibility. Because if the people don't trust the government, how can the nation function in the interest of its people? We need to establish an independent anti-corruption commission with investigative and prosecutorial powers, enforcing strict penalties and fast-track corruption cases through dedicated anti-corruption courts, encourage reporting of corruption through a protective, anonymous reporting mechanism, and provide incentives for whistleblowers. Implement an open budgeting system that allows citizens to access and understand the budget allocation and spending in a user-friendly format. Conduct regular audits and publish the results for public scrutiny. Enact the Comprehensive Freedom of Information Act that mandates government agencies to disclose information upon request, except for national security matters. Strengthen laws to protect whistleblowers from retaliation ensuring their confidentiality and job security. Establish regular consultations and dialogues between government and civil independents, government and civil society organizations to seek public input on policies and decisions. Uphold media freedom and independence, ensuring that journalists can report without fear of intimidation or censorship. Encourage responsible journalism and fact-based reporting by implementing industry standards and providing training to journalists. The impact of the Communist Rebellion in the Philippines has been a vast and enduring note on history. Economically, the insurgency influenced land reforms and disrupted local economies, particularly in rural areas. Politically, it created deep divides within society, resulting in a polarized political landscape that continues to affect the country's governance and policy decisions. The scars of the rebellion still affect the nation, causing mistrust and discord between generations, both physically and online. But it is always important to learn and understand the past in order to prevent it from holding us back in the present, where we are in control of our fate and future.
¿Me pide usted dos palabras? Diré algunas ideas mías sobre
I am conscious of the tremendous responsibility that is mine.
America's Philippine adventure is unique in the history.
Deseo aprovechar esta ocasión del retorno de mi hija de su viaje a España.
Kung ikaw ikakamatay ng maliit ninyong lingkod at alipin na si Magsaysay, hindi paling mamatay ako dito sa panahon na ito!
I go home to the Philippines, treasuring in my memory.
That the martial law regime of Marcos was nothing but an evil disguise.
In the first place, I was duly elected as president.
Not to relax, but to be even more vigilant in this our moments of triumph.
Dapat lang na malulit ang siyang makinabang sa ating pagsusugat.
Yan ang sabi nila, deterrent. Hindi naman, wala namang na-discourage na
Ang aking minamahal mga kababayan, magandang tanghali po sa inyong lahat.